Percy Bysshe Shelley was a young, passionate poet with the gift for evoking powerful human emotions through his works. His poetry often reflected his deeply political and social ideas, championing the individual freedom, justice, and love. He was a sensitive soul. He was a vegan who also loved nature and animals. But he was also, well, kind of an asshole. And I'm going to go into that more later in this video. But before we continue, I just want to put it out there and let you know that this video does contain discussions about suicide. So if that's something that you feel would be disturbing, please consider maybe skipping this video. Percy was born on August 4th, 1792, into an aristocratic family. His father, Sir Timothy Shelley, was a deeply religious politician and lawyer. He was also known for being, well, kind of a hard-hearted and mean-spirited kind of guy, and it's really not kind of surprising that Percy would later go on to rebel against him. Now, in 1804, Sir Timothy sent Shelley to Eton College, where he had a miserable time. He was constantly bullied, both physically and emotionally, and he was given the nickname of Mad Shelley. Now, in 1810, Percy found himself instilled at Oxford University, where in 1811 he got his ass expelled for publishing a pamphlet called The Necessity of Atheism. Now, once out of Oxford, later that year, Percy Shelley would marry a pretty 16-year-old girl named Harriet Westbrook. But by 1814, things weren't going so well, and Shelley had all but abandoned Harriet and their daughter, and Harriet had no other option but to return home, dejected, shamed, and all but forgotten by the husband she still loved. Now, Shelley's reason for abandoning Harriet and his daughter was due to his obsession with another 16-year-old girl. Now, at this point, Shelley was 22 when he laid eyes on Mary Godwin, the daughter of philosopher and writer William Godwin, who just happened to be Percy Shelley's hero. Now, Mary herself was equally taken with Shelley, and they declared their love and perhaps even consummated it on the grave of Mary's mother, the writer and female rights advocate Mary Wollstonecraft. Now, things started to get pretty serious between Mary and Percy, and one evening in July 1814, Mary and Percy ran off to France. Now, they also had Mary's stepsister, Claire Clairmont, tagging along for the ride. And if you've seen my video on Claire, then you know that it was through her encouragement that they finally wound up chilling with Lord Byron in Switzerland. And if you'd like to chill with some more videos like this, consider liking and subscribing. Now, while Byron was less than pleased to see Claire, he bonded quickly with Shelley, and even though Percy described Byron as mad as the winds. Now, Byron and Shelley often spent time out on the lake or hiking through the mountains when the weather permitted, and his outings with Byron helped to inspire him to write one of his best-known poems, Hymn of Intellectual Beauty. And if you'd like to read it, I'll put a link to it down below. Now, while Shelley loved being on the lake, he didn't like being in it because, well, he couldn't swim. And in one occasion when him and Byron were out on the boat, they were caught in a squall. And Shelley, who was very proud, knew that if they capsized, Byron would attempt to save him because Byron was noted for his swimming. He was a strong, athletic swimmer. But Percy Shelley, as I said, was very proud and decided that that would be a cause of shame for him should they capsize and should Byron attempt to save him. Shelley actually said that, "I knew my companion would have attempted to save me, and I was overcome with humiliation. Now, this episode with Byron does foreshadow a future event at which Byron was also at, but in a very different role. Now, when the weather wasn't permitting, as often was the case, Byron Shelley and Byron's personal physician, Dr. John Polidori, would sit around Villa Diodati debating on medical and scientific theories, including the reanimation of corpses, which was known as galvanism. And they also read ghost stories from a collection called Phantasmagoriana, and this inspired Byron to suggest that they each write a ghost story. Now, Byron also read aloud from Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Christabel, an erotic vampiric poem involving two women, which sent Shelley running from the room, screaming about visions of women with eyes in their breasts. Now, while this behavior might seem like it was some kind of drug-induced hysteria, the truth is that Shelley had always been preoccupied with the supernatural, and he suffered from nightmares and sleepwalking. And he even sometimes experienced waking visions in which it was impossible for him to tell the difference between the hallucination and reality. Now, these late-night discussions, coupled with the stories, greatly influenced Mary's subconscious, and it was her dreams that led her to conceive the idea for Frankenstein. Now, it's here that we have to thank Percy Shelley, because Mary later stated that without Shelley's encouragement, her masterpiece would never have taken the form in which it was presented to the world. Now, this is the point where I'm going to justify my earlier comment about Shelley's assholism. Mary and Claire weren't the only siblings. They weren't the only daughters that were living in Godwin's house, because Mary also had another stepsister, Fanny Imlay, who was the daughter of Mary Wollstonecraft, Mary's mother, and an American named Gilbert Imlay. So all three girls lived together in the house. And it was actually Fanny who was the one that Percy was initially attracted to when he started hanging out at the Godwins. Now, needless to say, William Godwin was not liking the vibes he was getting off Shelley, so he packed Fanny up and shipped her off to Wales. And that's when Percy Shelley's attention turned to Mary. Now, Shelley, Mary, and Claire returned to England in September of 1816. And on October 9th, Shelley received a note from Fanny that alarmed him to the point where he ran out to go and find her. And unfortunately, he didn't. And that night, she committed suicide by taking an overdose of opium. And she did leave a note, but it didn't really leave any kind of understandable explanation. But then again, they probably didn't need one, because everybody knew that the cause of Fanny's suicide was her unrequited love for Shelley. Tragically, Fanny wasn't the only woman who would throw her life away over Shelley. On December 10th, the body of Harriet Shelley was found floating in the Serpentine. She had been there for several days and was also very pregnant. And of course, the rumor mill went into full-time operation, claiming everything from Harriet having a secret lover to becoming a prostitute. Because, that's just what women did. However, what is known is that Shelley was the reason behind it. In her final note, Harriet wrote, "My dear Bish, if you had never left me, I might have lived. But as it is, I freely forgive you, and you may enjoy that happiness which you have deprived me of." Ouch. Now, on December 30th, Shelley and Mary were married. In 1822, the Shelleys found themselves in Italy, and on July 8th of that year, Percy disappeared after his boat, the Don Juan, was lost during a storm. Now remember, Percy Shelley didn't know how to swim, and apparently there were some rumors about the boat being not exactly seaworthy, and this led to Shelley drowning. Now, his badly decomposed body washed ashore 10 days later and could only be identified by his clothing and a copy of Keats' poems in his jacket pocket. Now, they had to wait a couple of days before they could bury him, just to make sure that there wasn't any kind of disease or anything floating around him. So on the 16th of August, his body was cremated on the beach, and his ashes were buried in the Protestant cemetery of Rome. Now there's a well-known painting depicting this scene. It's entitled The Funeral of Shelley by French artist Louis-Édouard Fournet. The painting illustrates Shelley on a funeral pyre while Edward Trelawny, Leigh Hunt, and Lord Byron look on. In the back you see Mary there on her knees. However, Mary would not have been allowed to witness the cremation, and Byron, who was disturbed by the condition of Shelley's body, decided to go for a swim. But not all of Shelley's body was consumed by the fire. His heart, or perhaps it could have been his liver, was described by Trelawney as not burning, and it was plucked from the ashes, and eventually, after some argument over it, was given to Mary, who kept it in a box until her own death in 1851. Now, Shelley's short but extremely complicated life is impossible to fully condense in a short video like this. However, if you'd like to learn more, I highly recommend Shelley, The Pursuit by the wonderful romantic biographer Richard Holmes. This book was my main source for this video, and I'll put a link below if you'd like to take a look at it yourself. So, do you have a favorite poem by Shelley? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on History by the Book. Bye-bye.